Wednesday, March 16th. Welcome to the Just Baseball Show. Aram, yesterday was so awesome, and today has not been so awesome. Of course, this is coming the next day. We're recording Tuesday at 5:47 p.m. Eastern. It's the rumor mill because we don't have any real big deals to talk about. It's like they're teasing us right now.
Yeah, well, which is funny though, Peter, because I know it, bro. I know we're gonna finish recording. We're gonna publish the podcast, and then something's gonna happen, and I'm gonna text you and be like, dude. That's what it always ends up happening. But no, there's so many things that are still. It's funny because each domino falls, and then it has implications. Like Olson going to Atlanta now means okay, Freeman is definitely on the open market, because I think we were talking about Freeman going elsewhere, but at the same time, I don't know about you, I still didn't believe it was actually going to happen. I would have put, if you had me pick, I would have picked the Braves 10 out of 10 times. I didn't believe it would happen. So like now we're seeing the dominoes fall.
I'll take that in the chest. You and I predicted the Braves. I will stand on that mountain every single time.
No
I
way.
still thought he would still go to the Braves no matter what the Dodgers said. And it makes sense, right? It seems that it was, of course, a business decision. And we're going to talk about a lot of Freddie Freeman rumors. But I think the big story, because we're going to talk about Freddie Freeman in a minute, the big story is Matt Olson signing the 8-year extension worth $168 with these Atlanta Braves. Came really quick. He's an Atlanta native, so it even makes sense that he would want to find a home there. But I'm looking at this, and I know he passed 2 years of arbitration, so it's going to be a little bit less expensive. But it was still a steal again, dude. The Braves do this every single time. How do they do it? That's the question. It's not why did they do it? It's clear why they did it. He's one of the best first basemen, but how do they keep doing it?
Alex Anthopoulos leverages arbitration better than anybody out there. I mean, some guys will turn down those contracts, right? Like Albies took the guaranteed money with a lot of years of arbitration. I mean, we saw the same thing with Acuna because they wanted that money up front. In this instance, Olson still got a bag, but they had 2 years of leverage where they knew, Olson knows I'm only going to make quote unquote, going to make $10 to $12 million in arbitration. Now I signed this contract. I'm going to make double that over the next 2 years, but I'm giving up a little bit on the back end. Win-win for both teams. You're not giving Freddie Freeman 8 years, right? He would be 40 at the end of that deal, maybe 41. Yes. So, and Freeman wanted a contract up until his late 30s. Now you're golden because you have your first baseman for 8 years plus now. And honestly, I think what it boils down to, Pete, is like, we didn't think Alex Anthopoulos was this ruthless. He is ruthless. It is a baseball savvy move. I know he got choked up talking about, and I'm sure it was a really tough decision. But I mean, Freddie Freeman's going to be just fine. He's going to get his bag. I know it's hard to leave Atlanta, but it's a Freddie Freeman decision too, I mean, they came and they offered Freddie Freeman a contract. Freeman knows he's going to get more, and so he opted to go get more. The Braves on their end knew that they could get somebody for longer and a little bit cheaper, and they opted to do that. It's not all the Braves. It's a mutual decision here, and they both did what's in their personal best interest. That's what happens sometimes in life and in baseball.
It's exactly what happens, and it's not like Freddie took this hometown discount to come back to the Braves. He's looking to make his money. And the Braves saw that. Right. Good for both sides. That's just the way it goes sometimes. So Andrew McCutchen, moving on to another deal. So what we're going to do is we're going to move through all the deals that happened today. Not that many, just to play spoiler. There aren't that many, but the rumor mill is starting to pick up. So the next deal on the slate is Andrew McCutchen signing a 1-year deal with the Brewers. And I put out on Twitter, I like the deal. They need a center fielder like that. And Andrew McCutchen, that veteran presence, he wasn't that great offensively last year, but moving over to Milwaukee, guys can certainly hit there. I'm excited for the Brewers, but the thing is, this cannot be the only bat that the Brewers add if they want to remain competitive. They still have probably the best rotation in baseball. Actually, I have a question for you. Jack and I were kind of debating about this, Mets versus Brewers, or you could even throw the Blue Jays in there. The Rays have an underrated rotation. There's a lot of good rotations, but I kind of went player by player, and I'm taking still Burns and Woodruff against DeGrom and Scherzer is not that far off. And then Freddie is better than Bassett. And then now it gets to some muddy waters. Adrian Hauser and Aaron Ashby, or Taijuan Walker and Carlos Correa.
Oh my gosh. It's funny because I think the safe choice is the Brewers duo, But if Carrasco is the Carrasco we know he can be, and Walker too, there's Walker. If I'm taking a rotation, I'm taking the Brewers because it's less volatile, it's less risky, and it's still going to be lights out. But in terms of upside, I mean, the Mets have endless upside, right? So, but I would lean Brewers. I think I'd take the youth. I'll take the guys that are getting better. I mean, Ashby gets better every time we see him. Peralta, I mean, now that he's healthy again, looks better every time we see him. It's just scary. And what's scary is Woodruff and Burns still keep getting better. This is a rotation that's only going to continue to improve. What's interesting about McCutchen, and I like this signing because he doesn't need to play every day. He demolishes lefties. Lorenzo Cain doesn't need to play every day either. He deals with injuries. You can split that up timeshare wise. McCutchen's still fast, Pete. What I was shocked is when I checked at the Savant page, 89th percentile in sprint speed. So he's still able to give you a little bit of athleticism out there. And against lefties last year, he was non-competitive against righties. I assume they're almost going to shelter him from righties. But 293 with 15 jacks against lefties in 164 at-bats. 15 home runs in 164 at-bats. That's insane.
That's almost MVP level McCutchen.
Yeah, that's MVP. He's only facing lefties. So I love it.
My only thing is, so we're about to go through a bunch of the lists of free agent. Also, Heathe Hembree signed with the Pirates. So that's technically a pitcher, and that's technically a team. They're adding.
It's a team and it's a player.
It's a team and it's a player. The problem is with the Brewers is that they have not been connected to any of these big time bats. Not Nick Castellanos, not Seiya Suzuki, not Trevor Story, not Freddie Freeman, not Carlos Correa. I've been going through the rumor mill, and that's what this podcast is about. I haven't heard a lick about the Brewers being connected to any of these guys. Have you?
No. And that's the interesting thing, right? Like, okay, how do they upgrade this offense? Like, Pete, are we sold on Rowdy Tellez at first base? He was good last year, but are we sold on Rowdy Tellez at first? He was, at the end of the day, like, wasn't that great.
Yeah, and then Hunter Renfroe.
Premium spot.
Hunter Renfroe they got in the offseason. He should be a better bat than what they were getting from Jackie Bradley Jr. I mean, I'm as good of a bat as Jackie Bradley Jr. So, you're getting anyone is a plus over there. But Jackie Bradley Jr. is, of course, great in center field. Not gonna bash him that hard. That's where his value comes through, but not as an offensive player. But you kind of look around the diamond. Willie Adames is a solid shortstop. He's going to be better with the Brewers again this year. Luis Arias is another guy I like. 24-year-old young third base guy, could play second base as well. But there's not much. I mean, Omar Narvaez is a great catcher, good framer, but he's not that offensively gifted. Like, there's just not a lot there. And if the Brewers don't make a trade or they don't sign one of these big free agents, I don't know what to tell you. Because if they don't sign a free agent, then I'm not zooming them into a playoff picture when the Giants getting Rodon. I don't see the Brewers making these playoffs. I don't know if they're better than the Cardinals if they don't add more bats.
Yeah, I mean, I know they want to be pitching centric, and that's they're good there. And I think anytime you have a rotation like that, you're in really good shape. But yeah. I agree with you. Like, there's a level of concern offensively, and it really ends up boiling down to what Christian Yelich are they going to get? Yeah. If they're getting, and I'm not saying they need to get MVP Yelich, if they get All-Star Yelich, now things look a hell of a lot different. But right now we're under the assumption that Yelich is, a big question mark, and that's concerning. I do like the addition of Renfroe. I think he's going to hit for some power there.
Me too.
I think a big X factor is Arias. I mean, people forget that he's going to be 25. He's still 24. Like he said, he's going to be 25 by opening day. Like, he's still so young. He can take his game to another level, he started to do that last year. If he can take it up another notch, it could be really interesting to see, what that means for them. 111 WRC plus last year, 23 home runs. If he ticks that up even a little bit more, now I'm starting to believe. And then maybe they get something out of Keston Hiura. Maybe Hiura figures it out. That's a guy that I think everybody's forgot about. At one point was one of the best prospects in baseball. So much offensive potential. Let's see what they get out of Hiura. I don't think they're going to make any more moves, really, Peter. I think they love their pitching. They love their bullpen. And I think that they feel like Renfroe was enough on top of McCutchen and a healthy Lorenzo Cain, who missed most of last year. We'll see.
I don't know if that's enough. But we'll move on to the rumor mill. Let's start with the big fish. Carlos Correa is still very available. We talked about it on yesterday's podcast. He might be looking for a 1-year deal. And who might have told Carlos Correa he should get a 1-year deal? Might it have been his agent, Scott Boras? Jack told us yesterday on the podcast that the problem is Carlos Correa switched agents, so Boras won't get the large agent cut if Correa signs this 10-year, $350 million deal, whatever it is. He won't get the agent cut. So maybe is he going up to Carlos Correa and be like, hey, Correa, maybe take a 1-year deal.
I'll get you so much more, I promise.
But then Jack, again, it was a great point yesterday. It's like you take the ACT and you get a 36, and then you go back and take it again in hopes to get a better score. He had the ultimate year before his walk year. I mean, his walk year. He had a great walk year. And yet, but I don't get it. But now the Astros are fully in on Carlos Correa, fully back in on Carlos Correa, because they think, and this is from John Morosi and Ken Rosenthal sent this out, that he could be looking at the highest annual AAV. I just said annual and then AAV in the same sentence.
Annual.
The highest AAV in shortstop history for 1 year.
So that's the thing, right? Is okay. If Correa wants to bet on himself here, it's almost like Kirk Cousins with the franchise tag, and he just kept taking the franchise tag. And that's why Kirk Cousins, if you look at who's made some of the most money, it's Kirk Cousins. If he takes this deal, let's say they give him 45 mil, 50 mil, who knows, whatever they give him, and then he gets the same contract next year, you just squeezed out another 15, 20 million. But God forbid you get hurt.
Which guy who's dealt with injuries.
Yes. And I think that's what's going to dissuade him. I think he's a confident guy that's willing to bet on himself, but let's be realistic here. You can't control injuries. You can do things to prevent it, but at the end of the day, anything can happen. I think it's something worth considering. I think if you and I were in this position, right? Like we're guys that like to think about things. Correa's a smart dude. Like he likes to think about it. I'm sure he's kicking the tires on it, but ultimately you think about it long enough. I just don't see how you could justify it. And I mean, look at Fernando Tatis. I'm not saying Correa is going to be whipping motorcycles, but I mean, Pete Alonso, God forbid, getting a car. Like you don't know what's going to happen. Totally Take the 7 to 8, 9 years, lock it up, and you're good. You could squeeze out 10, 20, 30 million. Is it really worth it at that point?
The thing is, who even has the money and has the positional need to give him this type of contract? And that's why I've always been like, I don't know if Carlos Correa is truly going to get $350 million, because I thought that the Rangers were the team to give someone that $325 million contract for a shortstop. They gave it to Corey Seager. The Cubs, they signed Andrelton Simmons to the $4 million deal. I mean, that was just hilarious, by the way. Like the Cubs fans except that was the most Yankee thing ever, when you're expecting Carlos Correa, then you get Andrelton Simmons. But back to the Carlos Correa thing. I'm looking across the 30 teams. Who has 300 plus million and needs a shortstop right now? You could say the Cubs,
Cardinals, maybe.
But we talked with Katie Woo. They don't want to. They don't want to spend the money. They're already spending $10 million on Paul DeJong. They believe in Edmundo Sosa. Could it be the Phillies are that team to do it? But they have Bryson Stott coming up. Like there's all of these different factors here. And you said it best on your tweet, that a team that plans for their prospects to do well is a team that might end up not being very successful.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Like if you're planning for your prospects to like, oh, I don't want to block our guys that are coming up because, they're going to come up and they're going to be great. So let's not add to the big league roster because I don't want to block them. That's a very, very bold assumption. So I'm curious to see what they do, because at the end of the day, I love Bryson Stott, but what if he comes up and struggles? I would be surprised because I like Bryson Stott, but I wouldn't be shocked. He's a prospect. Yeah, who knows what's going to happen? So I could see the Phillies decide to go for it, but do they have the money for that? I don't know. I don't know what their financial situation is. So I think it's a very valid point, Pete, that it's just like, who is going to shell out the money? Somebody will, I think, ultimately, but that might be part of the reason why they're interested in the 1-year deal is take the 1-year deal. And now more teams will have openings maybe next year in the shortstop situation. I think right now it's never going to be more barren because you already had Seager land on the big deal. You have Story on the market as well, which I think teams could talk themselves into for much cheaper. If he takes the 1-year deal, performs well again, who knows what other teams might be on the market for a shortstop. And I think that might be part of the reason why they're kicking the tires on it too, because of your point that the market may not be as hot for a $300 million shortstop as maybe they thought it would be.
This is pure speculation, speculation. But Trey Turner is a free agent after next year. I'm curious.
That's the only one I was thinking about.
That's where I come in, where it's like, all right, maybe they're viewing him as their guy next year. But then again, like Trey Turner is arguably better. I think he's better than Carlos Correa. I would take Trey Turner over Carlos Correa. I think he's a better player. I mean, the guy led the entire league at F4 and won the batting title and like hit almost 30 home runs. Like, I mean, he's phenomenal too. He's not the defender that Carlos Correa is, but he's still solid.
But he's good.
And he's versatile too. You can play him in second too. I mean, you can play Correa wherever. He's the best shortstop. When you're the best shortstop, you can play him wherever, but you don't want to move from shortstop.
You can't play Correa at second because I think he'd take the first baseman's head off.
Yeah. Honestly.
Could you imagine a full speed throw from Correa at second?
Terrifying. I mean, I played first base in high school, and like, high school guys are even throwing it over hard.
When they're zipping it.
Zipping it 100%. No, I'm not doing that. But so that's where I'm at with Carlos Correa. I've heard that the Tigers are still involved. They offered that 10-year, $275 million deal to Correa earlier before the lockout happened, which he did not accept. I'm curious if maybe they'd be interested in doing that again. Remember, they already signed Javier Baez, of course, but Javier Baez can play second base. They still need help up the middle. Nico Goodrum is now gone. He's on the Astros now. I mean, it's not like that matters that much, but he is gone. So, they still could realistically use that middle infielder. But and the Yankees are not going to get him. I mean, the Yankees have already declined that $300 million. They're not going to get him. No. And unless the Yankees give him $50 million over 1 year, I guess, if they're waiting for Volpe, I simply don't know where Carlos Correa is going.
Yeah. And I'm glad the Yankees aren't just throwing money around because they should just be extending Judge. Right. And I think that's the decision they had to make. Because I mean, you can't sign Correa and extend Judge. I know you want to spend money, but that's where you're probably over the tax threshold at that point. Like you're way over. You're way over. So I think that's the focus, right? Is you have to extend Judge, and I think that's the right decision to make. The interesting thing on the Dodgers too is we talk about not blocking prospects, and that's definitely something that I would never factor into my decision making unless you have that generational guy that's close to big league ready. Like I can understand the Yankees not wanting to block Volpe with an 8-year deal. I could get that. But when you look at the Dodgers, their farm system's phenomenal, but they don't have any shortstops coming up anytime soon. So that's a situation where you are looking at it and you're like, okay, well, we don't have anybody even that potentially looks like they'll be playing shortstop anytime soon for us. I think they could either talk themselves into extending Trey or maybe they're trying it now. And if Trey sounds just as expensive, maybe they go the Correa route. That's a team that I think makes the most sense, especially if they miss on Freeman. I wouldn't be surprised if Freeman is the shoe to drop and then we see Correa. And if they miss on Freeman, which now I'm seeing more teams get involved here with Freeman. I'm excited to talk about him because now all of a sudden a new team's added to the fold here. I could see the Dodgers ponying up and going to get Carlos Correa.
It just wouldn't be this year. It wouldn't be this year. You think they might do it this year?
I could see anything, man.
Honestly,
if let's say they don't get Freeman, they were planning on spending big money there, and now they add him into the fold. Trey Turner is going to be off the books next year. Justin Turner is going to be off the books next year. I don't know. Kershaw's off the books next year. They will have Jansen off the books very soon, or is off the books. We'll see if they bring him back. I don't think they will. So that's more money cleared up. I'm interested. I'm very, very interested to see what they do. But I will never
rule. The Trey Turner's coming off the books next year. It's interesting. It's very interesting. And then you look at the farm system, no shortstops. The Dodgers, they don't care about payroll. They're willing to drop 300. Correa seems like a guy who would fit in their system as well. Could you
imagine that middle infield of Correa and Turner?
Because they don't believe. I don't think they believe in Gavin Lux. I just don't. I don't think so. Because like, why are you in on Freddie Freeman to move Max Muncy then to second base? Like that's clear that they don't want to do that. So you're right. If they miss out on Freddie Freeman, don't be surprised if Carlos Correa ends up being a Los Angeles Dodger. So let's talk about Freddie Freeman. Who are the teams connected? Well, the Dodgers are. They're clear. That's the Dodgers have put in multiple multi-year deals. That's the only tweet we get. They're offering multi-year deals. But who the hell is it offering a multi-year deal to Freddie Freeman? But the other teams involved, the entire AL East has put in offers for Freddie Freeman. The Yankees have put in offers. The Blue Jays have been aggressively pursuing Freddie Freeman as well. The Red Sox have now jumped into the mix, and the Tampa Bay Rays.
Yeah, what the hell?
Deciding that they want to spend, and I love that. But the new team that has jumped into the mix for Freddie Freeman, that is the San Diego Padres. They are aggressively pursuing Freddie Freeman, and they are aggressively shopping Eric Hosmer and Will Myers. And Jack and I talked about this yesterday. Of course, they are aggressively shopping Will Myers and Eric Hosmer. I mean, of course, they're just holes. But if they can clear that up, I don't think a Freddie Freeman signing would send them in past the luxury tax. But if they don't get rid of Hosmer and Myers, because if they get rid of Hosmer, Freddie Freeman might cost $30 million a year. That still is going to send you over the luxury tax because they're currently around 200 million. They might be on the precipice of the luxury tax if they get rid of Hosmer and sign Freddie Freeman. But regardless, if they sign Freddie Freeman, they're going to be really close to that. It's hard for me to believe that he goes to San Diego, but I know that they are pursuing him. But right now, those are the final 6 teams. But of course, the way we've been doing this, he's probably not going to sign with any of them. What is he?
No, of course not. There's going to be a magical ghost team that comes in and snags them. But, we saw the Reds, and I still think that Hosmer and Myers deals are more difficult to move, potentially. We just saw the Reds dump Eugenio Suarez somehow in his contract, which is the least bit desirable. I don't know how you move Hosmer or Myers without attaching a prospect.
Yeah, you're gonna have
Myers is at least decent, right? Like Myers can swing it, and he's still 31. There's maybe some teams out there that would want to Will Myers, but I just don't see how you're clearing up that 20 million and 20 million for this upcoming season. I don't know how they do it. If they can find a way, then by all means they should go and try to find a way to do that. But yeah, I just think the money's going to be too tight for them. And we're going to have to see AJ Preller get really creative. What's interesting though, is Hosmer's contract was front loaded. So it goes back down to 7 million, or down by 7 million to 13 million next year. And Will Myers has a club option for next year as well, which means they would have 27 million off the books next season. I assume they would decline Will Myers' club option.
I don't know. Maybe they want to bring him back.
Yeah. Hey, let's bring him back for 20. So that's 27 mil that's opened up, which is about what the AAV would be. So maybe they bite the bullet and they say, we deal with it this year. This is the only way we're going to keep up with the Dodgers. Maybe they go trade Drew Pomerantz and his $6 or $8 million. They move some money here and there and get under, and they're okay. I think with the money coming off the books ahead, they might be able to justify it for 1 year. I would love to see him in San Diego. I think that would be a lot of fun.
Think about it. Fernando Tatis Jr. goes down with a wrist injury, and the Padres are immediately involved. Who is the GM just crazy enough to give Freddie Freeman the 6th year that he really wants? Because remember, he's been holding out from the Braves, been holding out from the Dodgers, Yankees. He wants the 6th year. They've all been offering 3, 4, 5-year deals, high AAVs, but he wants that 6th year. I think he's looking for 6 for 180. And who's going to give it to him? Who's crazy enough to do it? It might be AJ Preller and the San Diego Padres. And it wouldn't be crazy to do it because Freddie Freeman is the perennial beast. I mean, he's, if he's not the best first baseman, he's the second. If he's not second, he's third. Like, no doubt he is a perennial stud. So, and he's still just 32. You'd get him until you're 38.
You got the DH now in the NL.
You got the DH in the NL. And Freddie Freeman, I mean, how many better hitters do you think are going to age than Freddie Freeman?
Yeah, he's gonna age. He's gonna age just fine.
He might hit 300.
Not dependent. he's not dependent on massive power, right? He's to me is a line drive hitter who hits home runs. Like that's what Albert Pujols always self-described himself. He would always say, I'm a line drive hitter who hits home runs. Like Freeman's a hitter before he is a power hitter. He's a hitter. And I think he's going to age just fine. I would happily give him 6 if that's what it takes to keep him from the Dodgers too. I mean, the Padres already made that mistake of letting Scherzer go to the Dodgers, right? And obviously now it's okay. He ended up going with the Mets, but that was a team that was looking to get him too, and he ends up going to the Dodgers. They could have potentially gotten Trey Turner too in the fold, and the Dodgers signed both those guys. So I think if it's a competition here, you got to go with the extra year and try to pull him away from your division rival. And I think Preller kind of feels the pressure a little bit now, especially as you mentioned with Tatis out for 3 months. They can't do this thing all over again. Nope. They can't struggle like they did last year and try to piece it together, trying to get through these injuries. I don't think Preller's interested in doing that again.
And doesn't it feel like A.J. Preller over most GMs feels the pressure more than other guys? Like something happens to him and he's right back in to another free agent. Fernando Tatis Jr. now, he's in. And we're going to talk about the rest of free agents too. The Padres have made moves on some other of these guys. But next on the list, before we're currently live on TikTok right now. And you can also watch this, of course, on YouTube. People are calling Freddie Freeman the Tom Brady of baseball for the way he's going to age, which I kind of like.
I kind of like that. That's funny. I do think
Freddie Freeman's a champ.
I really do.
I agree.
I can't believe Brady's back, by the way. That happened while I was recording with Jack. Who retires for 40 days? Anyway,
see, I'm on the opinion that he's the goat of goats and he can do it.
Oh, I agree.
Also, our guy Sam Lucchini had a great tweet that Brady's retirement lasted longer than the MLB lockout.
Or the lockout lasted longer than
the lockout lasted than Brady's retirement.
Yep, it did.
It literally did.
That is
Trevor
insane.
Story. Trevor Story. New news today about Trevor Story. He turned down a 9-figure deal from a team asking him to switch positions. And
these shortstops, bro, these shortstops are egomaniacs.
But for good reason. It's Trevor Story. And I think I know exactly who the team is. It hasn't been put out. I think it's the Red Sox who did it.
Interesting.
I think it's the Red Sox who did it. They have Bogarts. They're one of the main 3 teams. You go to MLB trade rumors, you go to Passan, you go to Rosenthal. The Red Sox have been in on Trevor Story. And I think that Chaim Bloom came to Trevor Story as, hey, we're going to give you 120 million, 160 million, whatever we're going to give you. And we want you to move over to second base. Maybe we want you to move over to third base. We're going to move around the infield. And I think he said no. Remember, that's all speculation. This is just the team with the shortstop already that's been most connected to him. I don't think that the Mariners did it. And then we're like, no, JP Crawford is our shortstop of the future. So that's why it felt like it was the Red Sox who did that. What do you think about that?
The Red Sox aren't a bad guess. And I would say Red Sox or Mariners.
That's
Mariners,
speculation.
I think it could be the Mariners just because they're weirdly obsessed with JP Crawford.
I know they are.
So that's the only reason, because I agree with you.
Right.
I totally agree with you. Like, I would never I remember thinking, no way is JP Crawford stopping them from getting Trevor Story. And then they literally said, JP Crawford is stopping us from getting a legit shortstop. And not that he's not a legit shortstop, but like an impactful shortstop.
Like he's bad,
I could see the Mariners being like, sorry, JP's here. We want you at second. And at that point, if I'm Trevor Story, I'm like, you can kick rocks. I am not playing second base while JP Crawford plays short. I understand JP's better defensively, but I don't care. I guess.
Last year, Story wasn't great defensively, but Story, he made his money off of being such a phenomenal defender.
He's had a really good season.
JP had a great defensive season last year, but I'm not going to sit here and say that JP Crawford is definitely better than Trevor Story defensively.
The Mariners probably are.
Yeah, they probably are.
Jerry Dipoto loves JP Crawford. So I think it's got to be one of those two teams. I mean, how many other teams are looking to give him 9 figures and not putting him at shortstop? I can't really think of any other teams. And the ironic thing about the Red Sox, though, is it's kind of a similar thing there where it's like, okay, I know Xander Bogaerts is incredibly special offensively. But if you're playing second base and watching Xander Bogaerts play worse shortstop than you, That's also really frustrating because Xander Bogaerts, like I think Trevor Story would be getting to balls that Bogaerts should be getting to it short from second base. Like that's how much more range he has than him. So it definitely is frustrating if it's either of those two teams. But at the same time, like how many teams are going to offer Trevor Story 9 figures? I don't know. It's kind of the same thing with Correa, like we were talking about. How many teams that need a shortstop that are going to give him $100+ million? The Phillies, that might be more in their ball game financially. And that's one that I think could make sense. I still love Stott, but like we said, we're not just going to block prospect. Like we're not worried about blocking prospects.
Here's one more team that I think could have made that deal. Do you think the San Diego Padres might have made that deal? Could they have moved Jake Cronenworth to the outfield? Maybe move Jake Cronenworth to first base, get Hosmer out of there, and him be the second baseman.
I would move Cronenworth to first and then try to dump Profar, and you have Ha-Seong Kim as the roaming infielder. That's not a bad one either. And if they're in on Freeman, it's around the same amount of money. It's probably a little bit cheaper. And if you think about it from this standpoint, you're essentially doing the same thing you'd be doing in adding Freeman, right? Because you're moving Cronenworth to second, and then you're adding the offense at second base, which is, Trevor Story, versus just adding Freddie Freeman to first base. It's the same kind of addition of production. That's another one. That one makes sense. I don't know how many other teams outside of those three.
Speculating. It's just this is what makes sense to me. I think the idea that Trevor Story would sign a prove-it deal is gone. No way. It seems gone.
I another guy that, especially after a bit of a down year, I don't know if he wants to just do it in a new environment away from Coors and do a prove-it deal. I think he wants.
I don't think he wants to risk that. I don't think he wants.
A lot of pressure too. It's a lot of pressure. He starts, there's an adjustment period for sure because pitches just do different things. It's not just about the carry. It's about what the pitches do in terms of how they move. And if he starts poorly in the first 2 months, now he's feeling the pressure because it's a contract year. It's mounting. If you have a 5-6 year deal, like you can struggle a little bit. You'll be fine. I mean, like even Lindor, look at Lindor. So I think, there's no way he's doing a prove-it deal. There's no way.
Another guy who's definitely not doing a prove-it deal is Kris Bryant. But the team that has been aggressively pursuing Kris Bryant blows our freaking minds. The Rockies are aggressively pursuing him and have also been linked to Michael Conforto and Kyle Schwarber. The freaking Colorado Rockies, who have already signed Jose Iglesias and Chad Kuhl, are on the Kris
They're not
Bryant
done.
Trade. They're not freaking done. If Kris Bryant signs with the Rockies, I don't know. That makes no sense.
It's so funny because they let Story walk. They trade Arenado, and then they're going to spend money. Like the money that they're going to spend on Bryant, they could have just spent on Story. So maybe they really believe in Brendan Rodgers. I don't know.
I believe in Brendan Rodgers. But
I do too, but what?
If you, no matter if you think he's Fernando Tatis Jr., that doesn't mean that the rest of the team is any good.
Yeah, I that's what's really fascinating to me.
You just lost Sean Gray. You just lost, you're losing guys too. You're not retaining those. If they retain John Gray, that's what
I'm wondering. Okay, so let's look at it from this perspective. You add Kris Bryant, you add Conforto. Because I think it's Bryant or Schwarber and Conforto.
Okay.
Let's say you add Kris Bryant and you add Conforto. Now this is a lineup that sounds like Raimel Tapia, Brendan Rodgers, in no order. Charlie Blackmon, Kris Bryant, Michael Conforto, and then like Elias Diaz and Jose Iglesias and Sam Hilliard. I don't even know. How is that team competitive? And then you look at the pitching rotation. I love German Marquez. Senzatella is the weird guy that can pitch at Coors.
He is good, sort of.
Austin Gomber, Kyle Freeland, Chad Kuhl.
Okay. I mean,
I'm happy they're doing this.
Me too.
I want to see them not suck. Like baseball's better when you don't have teams that are just legitimately unwatchable.
Agreed.
But what's the play here? What's the 5-year plan? How does this team become competitive and good soon? Signing a 30-year-old, signing a guy that's 28 and saying, let's go. I just don't know how they do it, but I hope they do. Like, I think
hope
it's
they
kind
do
of funny.
too.
I think dude, Kris Bryant could hit 40 there. Like, he could legit hit 40 there. I hope they get Pujols more than anything. I need Pujols. I need Pujols in Coors. I need him there. He might get 700 there, but yeah, I don't really get it. I don't get it. I think they really believe in CJ Cron being a guy that can just produce for them, which I think he can. He's Agreed. Like built for Coors. But yeah, I just don't know how they do it. I don't know what the angle is. But let's see what happens, I guess.
And we both agreed that Kris Bryant to the Mariners made all the sense in the world. But what they decided to do was get Jesse Winker and Eugenio Suarez, which is, I was talking to Jack, it's kind of the same version of Kris Bryant, like in a way. Like you just got two players that kind of do. Eugenio Suarez could give you the power. Jesse Winker gives you the bat to ball skills. I don't know. But basically they shored up what they were wanting from Kris Bryant. They wanted a third baseman who could play in the outfield as well. They got Eugenio Suarez and they got Jesse Winker. So he's probably not going to Seattle anymore. Now the Phillies make the most sense in the world, but the Phillies have not been aggressively pursuing Kris Bryant like the Rockies have. We haven't really heard the Phillies. We've heard a couple rumors here and there, but no big offers from the Philadelphia Phillies, even though that probably makes the most sense. You know, you could play him at third, maybe give Alec Boehm some time to play DH. You can then put Kris Bryant in the outfield because now they have Mickey Moniak and Matt Vierling. Like, that's not an outfield. And I know they just got Odubel Herrera as well, but that's not an outfield. Like, you have Bryce Harper and that's it. Those are non-MLB starters, even on like a mediocre team. And if you want to be a great team, those guys cannot be in your lineup. So Kris Bryant to the Phillies makes the most sense to me. Have you heard anything about Kris Bryant? I haven't really, besides the Rockies.
That's weird. It's funny because we're seeing so many more teams get tied to so many players, but it seems to be pretty quiet on the Kris Bryant front, which is interesting because he can play corner outfield. He can play third. He can really play anywhere for you. And you have the universal DH now. Not that he's a DH candidate because of his versatility, but it's just another spot for a bat. I really am curious what the market looks like for him. I would love to have seen him in Milwaukee or something like that. Like, that's a difference maker for them, but it just doesn't sound like they're going to shell out that kind of money for him. And he's another guy that would really benefit from that environment there. I'm not an Alex Bregman fan, so like I would have loved him in Houston because he can roam around a little bit, but we know they're going to stick with Bregman there. How about the Rangers? Will the Rangers commit any more money to that infield? Josh Young's out for season. I know you don't want to, we talk about blocking. Well, this is a perfect example of why you don't worry about blocking guys, because the Rangers want to be competitive now, and they were ready for Josh Young to be able to contribute ASAP. Now he can't. He's coming back from a labrum surgery. But when he comes back, you put him in corner outfield. You can put Kris Bryant in corner outfield there, and I think he'd be great there. That's another team that I think could be a possibility. I really struggle to find another fit outside of, again, all the teams that I see him a fit for, I see outfield, right? Like the Guardians, I would love him in the outfield. There's no shot he's playing third. They've got a decent guy over there. Where else is he going? Like, how many other fits are there? The Mets are a possibility for anybody on earth. But outside of that, I think the Phillies make the most sense because they've clearly made their hesitation around Alec Boehm pretty evident and in their interest in Matt Chapman, right? Like, they inquired on Matt Chapman. Well, if you're inquiring on Matt Chapman, you got to have some level of interest in Kris Bryant. So I think that could be one of the options.
I just cannot believe that the Rockies are doing that. I just cannot believe that. But just going back to your Mets example for a second, the Mets are, of course, definitely still interested. They've called the A's again about Matt Chapman. They're in on the third base market. But they must be trading JD Davis. And they must be doing that. And Eduardo Escobar, they signed to be their third baseman, but I don't, maybe he's not exactly in the cards, but you did give him a multi-year deal. I mean, that's a guy you're probably going to play third. And then in the outfield, there really is no spot, with Nimmo, Canna, and Marte, but they do have the DH. So I guess it could make sense for Kris Bryant. It is the Mets. They, it's Steve Cohen and his billions and billions of dollars. He went way over the luxury tax, $290 million payroll. He probably made that $290 million this week from his hedge fund.
Yes, this morning.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the craziest part.
I cannot see the Mets.
It doesn't make sense.
The Rangers, though, that's interesting. But then again, the Rangers should be kind of still connected to everyone because they still have a bunch of holes left.
The Rangers is the one I probably like the most because of
over the Phillies.
I feel like the Rangers are the Phillies. Yeah. Phillies too, because now the Phillies lose an outfielder. Yeah. And again, Alec Bohm, if Alec Bohm performs, if he's back to that rookie year Alec Bohm, then you move Kris Bryant to the outfield. If Alec Bohm stinks again, you can now just stick him at third, and it's pretty easy to go find a corner outfield bat, or they might be able to piece it together themselves out there. So I would probably power rank it Phillies number 1 and Rangers number 2 fit wise, because also the Rangers, they have some question marks in their outfield. I don't love their outfield situation. It's kind of like borderline failed prospects and a breakout guy in Adolis Garcia. I would love to see either of those teams go get him. I really think if you have a situation where you have somebody that you can move, if one of your young guys performs, that's ideal. You can move him to the corner outfield if Bohm performs. And it's a similar thing with the Rangers. If Young comes back end of this year and is actually ready to go and contribute, which is unlikely, but even next year, if he comes back and he's just gangbusters, then you just move Bryant to the outfield. And I think both of those teams could really benefit from the versatility. They answer a short-term question and also have the backup plan long-term to still get a ton of use and value out of Kris Bryant.
Let's talk Nick Castellanos. He's been connected to the Padres, but the reason I bring him up now is because he's also been connected to the Marlins. And I want you to give the full story on what's been happening with the Marlins, because the Marlins are looking for bats, but it appears that Nick Castellanos is not the bat that they are looking for.
Yeah, so that's a guy Jeter really wanted. And which makes sense, because I think I tweeted this, but it was like, it makes sense that Derek Jeter wants to put together the worst defensive outfield of all time, basically, because it was going to be like Castellanos, Avi Garcia, and Jesus Sanchez, which would have been just brutal. And Castellanos is a really good player. We know how much he benefited from Great American Ballpark. I still think he's a great hitter, but going from Great American to Lone Depot is a big jump. He's not great defensively, and
Florida native.
Florida native was in South Florida native was the big tie, and he wanted to come to the Marlins because he's a local, and the Marlins weren't interested at the price tag. And I think he was part of the reason why I think Jeter was out, because I think Jeter, we know, is reportedly super into Castellanos, and the Marlins ownership and other pieces, at the helm there were like, I'm sorry, Derek, I don't know about that one. I really wonder who's willing to shell out $150 million, like we think he's going to get over 7 years. I like Castellanos, but are you willing to do that for a guy that's probably going to be a DH halfway through that contract? Already is arguably a DH candidate now.
I think he is.
And his power dependent, like his power is a little bit dependent on his environment. We've seen that for years and years and years.
America.
He's going to be a great addition to whoever picks him up. But I think he's one of those guys that has to be the right fit for the right team. I love him in Boston. And I'm sorry, but I love him in Boston. I could see him playing pepper with that wall, with that green monster. And I mean, that's a park that's second most hitter friendly, according to Park Factor. Big doubles guy, big gaps. I think he will eat there. And that's the fit for me. I know they've been interested in him. And again, it's kind of one of those things where we have to see where some of the other shoes drop. But let's say that Freeman goes elsewhere, especially if he goes in the AL East, then I think we all of a sudden see a full court press for guys like Castellanos. But Castellanos isn't up there with everybody else. So I feel like he's gonna come to a decision, or he's gonna sign after these main guys first. At least that's what I think.
My thing is, I feel like Nick Castellanos is not a Chaim Bloom guy. You know what I'm saying? Like with our worries about him, I feel like he's also having worries. And I just don't think the Red Sox are going to be the team to give him 7 years, 150. If his market comes down, then it would make a lot of sense. Like if they can grab him at a steal, maybe like a 5-6 year deal for 20 AAV, that could be something. Like 6 years, 120, or 5 years for 100. It's probably not going to happen because that's just a big discount, but then it makes sense for the Red Sox. But I just don't feel like Chaim is going to be the guy to overspend for a guy like Nick Castellanos. That's why in my article that I wrote on justbaseball.com, profiling Seiya Suzuki felt like the Chaim guy, right? Like the diamond in the rough, that only going to cost $10 million a year. The guy who they maybe think can be an impact bat in their lineup immediately. I mean, I compared him to Hideki Matsui because coming over from the MPB, MLB, Hideki Matsui had a little bit more power than Seiya Suzuki, but you had a Seiya Suzuki who finished with a 170 WRC plus in the MPB, Hideki Matsui 168. So if they can be kind of similar players, remember Hideki Matsui, when he came over, he was a 280 hitter, around 25 home runs a year, 100 RBIs. We could see that from Seiya Suzuki. I don't think that's that out of the realm of possibility. And the defense is already better than Nick Castellanos. Remember Seiya Suzuki, and we're already getting into him, so might as well just start talking to him. Seiya Suzuki. The teams that have been most connected are the Red Sox. The Padres have been pursuing. Remember, Seiya Suzuki was a guy who came out and he said, I haven't made my decision because the Padres already said that they basically got him. But he was like, no, I have not signed with San Diego Padres yet. But the Giants are still on him. The Blue Jays are still on him. Apparently the Mariners are in on him, but I don't think that's going to happen anymore.
No way now.
Now that they got Winker, I just don't see it. And then the Rangers, like you said, they are looking for that corner outfield bat. So things are picking up.
I have one thing, because I totally agree that Castellanos is not your typical Heim Bloom guy, but JD Martinez will not be a Red Sox that much longer, right? I mean, he's already 34 years old. That's a guy that I honestly always forget how old there's certain guys that you could convince me they're any of three ages. JD's 34 and he'll be 35 in August. I believe he's under contract. Yes, I'm literally searching it as we're talking. I think this is his last year, right? Yeah, he's a free agent in 2023. So maybe there's a scenario where they're like, okay, we're not planning on bringing JD back. And Castellanos kind of turns into that JD. He's pretty darn similar to him in terms of the way that they hit. They're doubles guys that run into homers. I could see that. That's the only way it's justifiable for me, is if they know that JD's gone, then they're like, okay, Castellanos is kind of the next man up that's going to fill that role. Only way it makes sense to me. If they come out and they say, which won't happen, I'm sure we'll find out about Castellanos before, but let's say we knew JD was staying, I think they were going to extend JD, then I'd be like, no shot. Because yeah, I agree. He's not a guy that really fits into that outfield, but they did get JBJ, who offers a lot of defense, and maybe, just maybe, Heim will stray from the beaten path because of those reasons. But I agree. I mean, I don't know if he's a prime fit for the Red Sox, but you never know. You never know. With Seiya, he seems like a way better fit. That's a guy that I think, he does a little bit of everything. It's not like they desperately need 40 home runs in that lineup, especially with Casas presumably coming up soon. Whatever they get out of Dalbec too, I don't think they desperately need big time power. Seiya gives you power, but he gives you a lot more. And I could see Heim Bloom gravitating towards that. I have a weird thing with him being, I feel like he could go to the Giants still too. I don't know why.
Agreed.
He just seems like such a good fit there too.
Agreed. I think it's either going to be the Giants or the Red Sox, or I think it's going to be the Padres. But the reason why I was so heavy on the Red Sox is because not only does Seiya Suzuki have a great relationship with former Red Sox reliever Koji Uehara, they're like really good friends. And they even had a podcast where he was asking about it. He's like, have you told them about the Red Sox yet? And Seiya Suzuki kind of smiled and kind of blushed a little bit. He follows the Red Sox on social media. Apparently, he's a big believer in Xander Bogaerts' swing. He says he's the guy who he always watches. It makes sense. Smart. Xander Bogaerts is one of the best hitters in baseball.
Smart.
It is smart. So that's just why it feels like that to me. And that's why maybe Conforto could end up being a Giant, because it's clear that the Giants need to make a move for a corner outfielder. But the teams that have reportedly checked in on Michael Conforto, the Phillies, the Padres, and you're not going to believe this, the Diamondbacks, the Rockies, and the Marlins have all checked in on Michael Conforto. So when I look across those five teams, Phillies scream the loudest, not only because of their need for an outfielder like we've been harping on, but the fact that Michael Conforto rakes at Citizens Bank. I said that on the last podcast. I've just been saying that the entire time. You look up at his stats at Citizens Bank. I think it's like one of his best parks he hits at in his, throughout his entire career.
And hitters know that, man. Like they know that shit.
Phillies want to steal something from the Mets, right? They want to be the team. Michael Conforto had a down year with the New York Mets. The Phillies, all right, we'll grab him and we'll make him good again. I feel like that's the most momentum, but the Padres are certainly in. The Padres are in on all of these bats. They need bats right now. But the Diamondbacks, I mean, what's going on there? The Diamondbacks are there is a freaking report that the Diamondbacks are aggressively pursuing Michael Conforto. That's a real thing that's happening.
What is like, again, I'm not going to complain about this because we've talked about how annoying it is that teams just mail it in. Like, I love this, but at the same time, sometimes I just don't get it. And the funny thing about the D-backs is, they have Alec Thomas, should be up on opening day. Corbin Carroll is not too far away. I don't see Conforto going there.
I don't get it at all.
Unless they're trying on like a 1-year deal and just want to flip him. Like, I think Melanson, it made sense just because Melanson wanted to get the most money he could get. Maybe they offered him the most money and they knew they weren't going to pay him on the second year of the deal because they'll flip him at the deadline. That makes sense.
Kennedy as well.
I don't really understand this one. What's funny about Conforto is that he was bad last year, still a 106 WRC plus. Like, he still walks so much. He's still a productive hitter. I also look at him as a Boris client who, what is the one thing Boris does? He puts his hitters in environments where they rake so that they can get a bigger deal the next year. Like, we saw it with Castellanos. We've seen it several times. I mean, why not throw him in Citizens Bank, have him rake on a 3-year, 4-year deal? He'll be 32 on the other side of it, 33 on the other side of it, and can get another contract after that. I think the Phillies make the most sense as well. Like, they're going to get, I really think the Phillies are going to get one of Conforto, Bryant, one of those guys. But I think there's a legitimate chance that the Marlins end up bringing Conforto in too. That's a guy that they've seen up close and personal. The Marlins need a bat. We hear them tied to Soler, but I know they do really like Conforto and what he brings, and they want less swing and miss. Conforto is a guy that keeps the strikeout rate in the low 20s and walks a ton to offset it. I would love to see him in Miami, but I think Philadelphia sounds like the best fit. Philadelphia or San Diego.
Breaking news: Colin McHugh is a Brave. Colin McHugh's a Brave. It's a good pickup. It is a good pickup. We're laughing. That's a good pickup. I mean, we saw how dirty he was last year. That's a good pickup. It really is for the Braves. They make another one of these smart moves. Colin McHugh, one of the best free agent relievers on this market. Bang, he's a Brave.
I like that. And I mean, that's a team that I think really wants to build the bullpen up. They seem to do a good job identifying arms. McHugh is good. And another thing that I don't know if we caught this before we started recording. Did you see the White Sox are discussing Sean Manaea and Frankie Montas with the A's? That's according to John Heyman. And here's my thing with that, because I think this is one of the good final topics here is how the hell do they get him? How the hell do they get either of those guys? It's the worst farm system in baseball.
Yeah.
It's kind of horrible. A lot. They'd have to trade like Jake Berger and some of the young guys. Like, I guess maybe they could put something together.
They could get Manaea. Manaea's not going to be that expensive. He's a fine pitcher. He's good. Like, I saw the Yankees were also connected to Sean Manaea as well. He's a fine pitcher. Yeah, he's not Frankie Montas. He's not even Chris Bassett. He's good. I don't think he's going to be that expensive. I think Berger would probably do it, maybe a filler. Sean Manaea is not. And remember, Sean Manaea is low-key sort of old. I think he's 30. Deceptively old. So I don't think he's going to be that expensive. Also, if we're just talking about the A's, because we have a couple more guys to finish. We have Kenley Jansen and Kyle Schwarber, but we can talk about the A's for a second. Matt Chapman is certainly going to be traded, it seems like. Frankie Montas is definitely on the trade block. Sean Manaea, again, is on the trade block. Ramon Laureano is certainly on the trade block. Do you think that the Marlins should go after Ramon Laureano? Because that's where I feel like that makes the most sense in the world. Yeah. You got the huge ballpark in Miami. He's a really talented player, good bat. I mean, not a great bat, honestly, but a good bat will lock down center field for you guys. That seems like the best move for the Marlins.
It's one that I've been asking for a while, honestly. That's one that I've been really, I think is just a perfect fit. And I mean, you talk about the defense out there in a really big park. He's not going to light it up offensively, but that's a bat that helps your lineup compared to what they've been getting from their outfield in the past. And I don't think he'd be the most ridiculously steep. I think they could attain him without even trading Max Meyer. So it's really interesting. We have not really heard anything. I've asked Craig Mish point blank, and Craig Mish was like, look, it could be happening. I just don't know about it. And usually if Craig Mish doesn't know about it, it's probably not happening.
Or it's not when it comes to the Marlins about really at all. Like it could be a thought, but it's not being talked about.
Yeah, it hasn't been pursued to any major degree.
That's the thing with the Astros one, is that apparently around Houston, around camps, people are that's all they're talking about is the fact that Correa might sign a 1-year deal again with them.
Oh my God. Jeremy Pena's like, no.
Jeremy Pena's like, damn it. And his baseball card is plummeting currently.
Yeah, just like right now. People are going to start chirping me like, you told me to buy this card.
But the last A that I want to talk about with you is Sean Murphy. And I think he's going to get traded to the Yankees. I really do think that the Yankees are going to make another move for a catcher. There is no way you can convince me that Ben Rodvert how do you say his last name? Do you have any?
I have not a freaking clue.
I know how to spell it. Or actually I don't now that I'm thinking about
There's
it.
There's no way you know how to spell that.
I see it in my eyes.
I just see a bunch of letters, honestly. It's like ROEDV.
Yeah. And I think there's a T in there. There's a V for sure. So he's the guy that came over in the Gary Sanchez trade. They got Donaldson, they got IKF, and this rookie catcher. Apparently, lefty bat can platoon, I guess, with Kyle Higashioka. That is not the starting option for the Yankees.
I don't believe the Yankees are platooning Kyle Higashioka and this gentleman that they just acquired. I just don't.
I think a blockbuster. I kind of think a combination of Sean Manaea and Sean Murphy will be heading over to the Yankees in a trade. The Yankees have been connected to Manaea. They've been connected to Sean Murphy. The Yankees and the A's. I mean, if we're talking about trade partners across baseball, those two teams trade with each other. They trade with each other. And I know the Yankees really, and the Yankees have, I've heard even too, the Yankees have sent scouts to go watch Sean Murphy. They really like him. I really like Sean Murphy. That's a top 10 catcher, I feel like, in the game. Really good defender, good bat, young, 26, you're right, still has years of control. That's the move that I think the Yankees are going to make, because there's no way that they start with that platoon and IKF at short. Like, that's not even that good of a team,
No,
like, think about it. That's not a good team.
No,
like if they don't get Freeman and they roll out and maybe they get Anthony Rizzo, that's not a good team.
No. They need more than that. And Voit is a big X factor. I'm excited to see what he does. But yeah, I really do think that they're going to do something else at the catching position. I really do, because there's nobody really. I mean, I love Austin Wells. We don't even know if he's going to catch, right? So it's not like there's anybody really knocking on the door that's going to save the Yankees catching wise.
What about the ambidextrous guy?
Oh yeah, the first round pick. Shoot, what was his name again?
Who cares?
Who cares? But yeah, I actually could see Sean Murphy, and like, let's be real, the Yankees have made a lot of trades. That system's still good. That's still a good system. You could trade, and I know A's fans have been like, what are we going to do with Oswald Peraza? Who cares? You stockpile shortstops if you're rebuilding. Like, stockpile shortstop. You're burning the whole thing down. You're not going to tell me, oh, I don't want Oswald Peraza because we have Nick Allen. Like, no, you will take Oswald Peraza.
Better than Nick Allen.
Yes, correct. And you will be happy with Oswald Peraza. He's a very good prospect. They could get him. They could get both of those guys. I think at that point, the system starts to tick back down to the bottom third of baseball. But again, who cares? You still have one of the best prospects in baseball in Volpe. You still have a lot of interesting up-and-coming guys. The Yankees kill it in IFA. I don't think they give a shit about depleting the farm system. And if you can do it with a controllable catcher like Sean Murphy, you don't get an opportunity to trade for a 26, 27-year-old catcher very often. And I could see Brian Cashman capitalizing on this one. That's one that I'm not even going to call you a Yankees homer for that one. I think that's a very fair thought. And not that many teams have the capital to make that happen. I think that need the help at the catching spot.
Exactly. And I think what kept the Yankees from Matt Olson was Anthony Volpe. They didn't want to part with him. But I still think, the A's have done their homework on the Yankees prospects. It's been clear. Oswald Peraza is always the guy being floated. I'm sure they would want him in a deal that would include Sean Murphy and Sean Manaea, possibly for Oswald Peraza, maybe another pitching prospect and another filler. But I disagree with you. I don't think that it's going to just crush this Yankees farm system as Oswald Peraza graduates. They still have a lot of up and coming guys. Like even a guy like Trey Sweeney is a really like exciting young shortstop prospect. Remember, he was their first round pick last year. Kind of came out of nowhere, but has a really sweet left-handed swing. That's why I don't think that this system is going to be depleted if they get rid of Peraza and a couple of pitchers. But regardless, that's semantics of the thing. But how about a different guy and a different team in the Yankees division? The Blue Jays are aggressively pursuing Kyle Schwarber. apparently aggressively pursuing Kyle Schwarber. Don't really get it. I get it. I just didn't think that they'd be on the forefront because both, again, the Guardians and the Phillies have been very connected to Kyle Schwarber. So those seem like the three teams that are most connected. But then again, wherever Freddie Freeman signs, if the Red Sox don't get Freddie, because they've been now connected to Freddie Freeman, maybe they want to go get Kyle Schwarber. That's where the Anthony Rizzo market opens. When Freddie Freeman signs, that's why I was in the opinion that Freddie Freeman was going to sign immediately, but he didn't, and it's been waiting. So it's interesting. What do you think about Kyle Schwarber?
There's one thing I will say for sure, because we talk about the fits for Conforto. We talk about some of these other fits. If there's one thing I know for sure, almost as close to for sure as possible, and this is talking to other reporters, and there's one thing that has been the most common theme to anybody who I really respect and feel like has really good insight. They've been very adamant about how much the Blue Jays want a left-handed bat. Like the Blue Jays want a left-handed bat more than any team has ever wanted a left-handed bat in the history of the world. And there's some good ones on the market, man. You got Freeman, you've got Schwarber, you've got Conforto. They don't need to trade for one. So I think they're going to get one of them. They're going to get one of them. And dude, you had Schwarber to that lineup. Holy crap.
Thump.
And maybe it's Rizzo. They're getting a left-handed bat. We're talking about 4 fantastic left-handed bats on the market, and the Blue Jays have been tied to almost all of them. They're getting one of these dudes. I don't know who. I don't know which it's going to be. Schwarber, for whatever reason, has the most, as Jack would say, like sex appeal. I think just Schwarber fits into that lineup, right? Like you look at that lineup, it's just a bunch of just dudes that mash, and Schwarber's just a donkey type dude. Yeah. Like I love Rizzo, but
are there too many donkeys? Yeah, sometimes the lineup can have too many donkeys. The Yankees, they fell into that boat. Too many donkeys.
That might be too many donkeys. Yeah.
That's why Conforto maybe makes more sense. But Conforto hasn't really been. The Diamondbacks are. I saw the headline, Diamondbacks are aggressively pursuing Michael Conforto. And I was like, Ken Rosenthal even tweeted that out. What's going on? But again,
how do you tweet that with a straight face?
Exactly. I'm sure he was laughing the entire time.
Do you think that the Blue Jays GM room or like in the front office, they're just like, when they're talking about Schwarber, they're like, is this too many donkeys? Like, but sir, that's 7 donkeys.
We need an X donkey stat.
Expected donkeys. But like, look, they're getting a left-handed bat. I think Conforto is a really good fit for them too. I know they want him, and I could see them making some trades, shuffling things around. I know there are people talking about Vladdy at third. That's interesting.
He can't even play first. How's he going to play third? That's me. He can play.
No, but he's not great there.
Yeah, he's not.
I don't know about Vladdy at third, but they're getting their left-handed bat. That's one I'm willing to bet on right there.
And the cream of the crop of the reliever market, Kenley Jansen, is also connected to the Blue Jays. Another team that has checked in on Kenley Jansen, the New York Mets. Those have been the 2 teams that I've only seen really connected to Kenley Jansen. I'm honestly kind of unsure of his market right now. I assume he wants a 3-4 year deal, kind of similar to what Raisel Iglesias signed when he went over the Angels. Liam Hendricks, he wants that type of deal. And you could make the argument that he deserves that type of deal. But you could also make the argument that he doesn't deserve that type of deal and that any team that gives him that type of deal is an overpay for him.
Yeah, he's just a little inconsistent. I really like Kenley. I think he figured things out at the back end of the year, but he was a little inconsistent. We've seen a bit of a roller coaster. He's a little bit older. I think he's going to try and get that. I don't think he does. I think he's closer to 3 years, 40-ish range, maybe 2 years, 30 something. But I think that there's a quiet market for him. Like we talk about a team popping up. I feel like that's a guy where we see a pop-up team just come out of nowhere and snag him. Who that is, I'm not sure. Ironically, the Marlins have been tied to him. I think the Marlins are trying to sort out the outfield situation before they decide. Let's say the Marlins trade for outfield. Now they have more money to put towards the bullpen. Maybe that's their splash. I would not expect it, but I know that they've had ties to him in the past. Wouldn't absolutely shock me, but I would probably lean towards him being a Blue Jay because, right now, as it stands currently constructed, we were hoping that Merriweather would be the closer for the Jays long term because that guy throws absolute fuzz. But, when you look at the Jays situation here in the bullpen, Jordan Romano's phenomenal. They have some other decent pieces, but they could use an experienced guy in the back end there as much as any team, I think, in baseball, given how talented they are. And that seems like just the perfect fit. The Mets, it's just, you're shelling out more money for the back end of your bullpen because they have limitless pockets. But I think the fit is best with the Blue Jays, because outside of Romano, who else do they really have that you truly, truly, truly trust?
And hasn't that always been kind of the kryptonite of the Blue Jays? They always had the offense. They had arms. Robbie Ray won the Cy Young last year. Alek Manoah, they have arms. Nate Pearson, they have arms. It's just in the bullpen. They even go get Kirby Yates not so long ago, but then he goes down with a big injury. So, but what we do know, still good on TikTok. Yeah, we're still live on TikTok, people. That LE_penis has alerted me that the universal DH is still available. So that means that the Braves will get Freddie Freeman. That's from LE_penis on TikTok. That's one of my sources.
Ooh.
Do you find anything?
Do you think that's AA's burner? Yeah, like Alex Anthopoulos was literally crying.
Burner.
He was literally crying in a press conference, like tearing up about Freddie Freeman. Then he's going to be like, psych, we're bringing him back. Like the meme, like call an ambulance, but not for me. Like that's literally what it's going to be. Like he's gone. I'm sorry. I know it's hard to accept, but Lepinas, the Braves are still great.
The Braves are still great. And they
might be better. They might be better now.
And they extended Matt Olson. I think they might be better. They won a World Series and they might even be better. So that'll do it for Wednesday's episode. We just did the rumor mill. Hopefully on tomorrow's episode, we can talk about some deals. But to be honest with you, speculating sometimes is just as fun. And that's what we were doing here. Just to recap, going down the pipe, Carlos Correa, we think he might do a one-year deal, possibly to the Dodgers, not far out of the realm of possibility. Freddie Freeman, we know who's connected with him, the Dodgers, the AL East, and the Padres. Trevor Story turned down a 9-figure deal from a team asking to switch positions, and the Twins are definitely very involved with Trevor Story. Kris Bryant, Rockies are pursuing him for some reason. No idea why. Kyle Schwarber, the Blue Jays are making the aggressive push with the Guardians and the Phillies. Kenley Jansen, the Blue Jays and the Phillies, the Blue Jays and the Mets have checked in on him. Conforto, Phillies, Padres, Diamondbacks, Rockies, Marlins have all checked in on him. Seiya Suzuki, the Padres have made a big push, but it's still down to the Giants, Red Sox, Padres, Blue Jays, Mariners, and Rangers seem to be on the forefront of him. Anything I'm forgetting before we part?
No, all I have to say is I think Trevor Story looks like the perfect fit for the Twins now. I love it after these moves they've made. I love the Trevor Story fit, especially after dumping Donaldson's money.
Yep.
That's the one. If I'm picking one, I think he's going to Minnesota, and I love it. That's going to be a fun team if they get him.
They cleared $41 million in payroll from these deals.
And they're arguably better than they were before.
Arguably better.
I'm loving what they're doing right now.
I agree.
And Story would be just the cherry on top. And they've got young hitters that can put it together. Talking about Kirilloff. I know Miranda's going to be up and good. I expect him to contribute right away. We'll see what Larnach can do. Like, this is a fun team. If Buxton's healthy, which is, I think we've said, everybody on earth has said that about 5,000 times, but it is a big X factor there. This could be one of baseball's, more fun, trendy teams. And, go get Trevor Story. Do it.
And I think
I think they're doing something here.
The Twins were waiting on Royce Lewis, but I don't think they can wait on Royce Lewis anymore, right?
Come on. Yeah, look, if Royce Lewis is great, then good. That's great. Yeah, well, you can figure it out then. Like, that's a good problem to have. Well, let's get there first, and that's the thing that Twins fans I've seen say, like, oh, but we got Royce coming up. Royce hasn't played in half a decade. Yeah, let's wait and see how things go. I hope he pans out, but let's see. And he's not even a surefire plus shortstop defensively anyways. You can move him to second, you can maybe move him to third, whatever. So we'll see how that all shakes out, but I'm excited about the Twins, and I'm excited about a lot of these teams kind of making those moves to try to be better and competitive. And baseball's going to be fun this year, man. There's going to be a lot more parity, I think, across the board.
Agreed. And there are a lot more moves to be left. And you can follow all of the moves on our TikTok at Just Baseball Fans. on our Instagram at Just Baseball Fans, but especially on our website, justbaseball.com. We have a free agency thread that's being updated by our guy, Ryan Finkelstein. So you can follow that on the website every single thing. And we'll even update you on Twitter as well. You can follow Aram and I, of course, on Twitter. That's in the episode link description. Get your Just Baseball merch. I'm rocking my JB hoodie. Check out the hoodie TikTok. We're still live on TikTok. Check out the hoodie. Aram's wearing his Just Baseball polo. I'm almost ready to say thank you, everybody, but are we forgetting anything before we go again? Because we kind of forgot to talk about the Twins and Trevor Story, because that might be the real spot that he's going.
No, I literally forgot about that until the end. That was the only thing I wanted to get in. That's literally it. But yeah, I'm amped up. It's gonna be a really fun week. We got March Madness. I know you talked about that on Not Gambling Advice with Jack. March Madness plus hot stove equals happy me. So I'm amped up for this next week plus that we have. It's gonna be good for sports.
And with that, thank you, everybody.